Hello, my name is Jasmine Palmer, and this is my final project for EE267 Virtual Reality. So I started off this project by creating my assets. I used the SolidWorks modeling software to create the Octorok model and the Master Sword model. Um, when those were finished, I then exported them as STLs to Blender, where I added their color and defined different materials to do that. Once that was completed, I exported those again as DAE files into Unity so that it would be one of the file types that Unity accepts for um, imported assets. Next was setting up the Leap Motion hand tracking camera. I needed to download its SDK and modules, which I imported as assets and plugins as well. And then I set up the camera and tested that the Leap Motion hand tracking does work. Then I developed two scripts, one called Game Controller and the other called Sword Collision. Game Controller essentially managed the creation of assets, their positions, orientations, their mapping to their particular asset models, and their physics, if there is any, and their interactability with other objects. The sword collision, on the other hand, only is attached to the sword model itself, and it handles the logic of what happens when the sword comes into contact with the Octorok and quote-unquote kills it, which is symbolized by turning the Octorok upside down and turning the model of the Octorok gray. The final step of developing this environment was to create the terrain and change the sky to set the atmosphere. So the terrain was then created using Unity's standard assets imported from the Unity Asset Store. And the mountains were sculpted using the Unity terrain tools and their raise and lower feature. And then the sky was an imported asset as well from the Unity Asset Store and was just set to this pre-made red sky. And here I am showing the final product of this environment working together. So I am looking around my environment. I see my mountains, my red sky, the outdoors in front of me, and then I can use my hand and grab the sword and then swing the sword through the Octoroks and effectively kill them and be the winner of my little game. And then here I show what that action looks like in the real world. Me moving my hand through the real space and moving my head throughout the real world and translating that into looking at different perspectives of my environment. And that concludes my project. Thank you for listening.